A glimmer of hope was provided this week by ordinary Sudanese civilians rather than two armed forces battling for supremacy on the ground. On May 27, to the sound of joyous ululations, the coordinated bodies of the Democratic Civil Forces of Sudan, more snappily known as Tagadom, began a 4-day convention in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, chaired by Abdallah Hamdok, Sudan's last civilian prime minister. Tagadam seeks to rally a wide coalition of Sudanese as possible to stop the civil war and return the country to civil rule. People from all 18 Sudan states were represented among the 25 delegations from Sudan's worldwide diaspora. Was a sprinkling of Stetsons. Another 30 delegates were from displaced people's camps. A full 40% of delegates were women. A similar proportion were counted as young, meaning under 45. The Tagadom had drawn support from some of Sudan's main political parties, such as the Umma, as well as a handful of armed groups that has so far been neutral in the war. The result was a heady miss, which Meredith Preston McKee, a Canadian veteran of many peace negotiations in East Africa, called this conference the most inclusive process he has ever witnessed. I will just end with this one. Mr. Hamdok, a former Sudanese, a former economist and the Tagadom leader, said they want Sudan to be a secular democracy led by civilians. It can be looked as if they favor any group opposed to the SAF, which is the South African Armed Forces, which has its roots in the oppressive Islamist regimes led by Omar.
Sudanese Armed Forces.
Sudanese Armed Forces, yeah. Which has its roots in the oppressive Islamist regimes led by Omar el-Bashir from 1989 to 2019. So, the reason I picked this story was I was fascinated by the agency being exercised by the Sudanese.
Right.
And it's not often that you get the Western media, showing these aspects. Yeah. So, what's your take?
Well, I like it that they're doing that because for people that are not that familiar, when it comes to political organization, Sudanese civilians have always been way, way ahead of the game, right? Activist politics, organized unions,
yep.
Politics. They're as advanced as one could say South Africa was, during the struggle against apartheid. You could say that civil society is very organized as Senegal has always been, right? And the Sudanese have been like that. The Sudanese are one of the few places where civilians are organized and come on the streets and depose military regimes, including Omar Hassan Bashir's own military regime in 2018, of course. So the fact that they're able to organize a gathering like that, and I think the article mentioned 600 delegates.
Yep.
So that's a lot of people that
with women as well. With women as well.
Right. I think it's at 40% of attendees would want to play a role in salvaging their war-torn country.
Yeah.
And of course, the problem is, there are a number of possibilities, right? The main obstacle are the leaders of the armed people engaged in the conflict right now, right? And the leader of the Rapid Response Force?
Rapid Response Force, Hemedi.
Right, General Hemedi, and General Burhan, who is the commander of the official national army, right? So long as they're in command of their armed forces, the people gathering and meeting now in Ethiopia, it's very ironic. Ethiopia itself it's still, at the tail end of its own civil war.
Yeah.
That's officially concluded. So they can come up with all the agreements, the communiques, and plans for the future. But so long as they cannot implement it on the ground, because these two military commanders decimating the country, particularly the Rapid Response Force, accused of, genocidal massacres in parts of the areas that it's fighting to try to control or to take away from the national armed forces. Some of the killings based targeting on religion, on ethnicity, on skin color, it's just so horrific. So how are you going to neutralize these two elements? There's only one possible, path, which would be for the junior commander, to get rid of, the top commanders, to get rid of General Burhan and Hemeti, correct? And say that we are pledging our support to the civilian process that is ongoing in Addis Ababa. That is a preferable outcome if that can happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if you say, we need outside forces to come and help us neutralize these commanders, how is that even going to happen in practice? Nobody wants to get involved in a bloody conflict like that if the armed parties are not willing
for
unless somehow a solution can be worked out where they would actually agree to ceasefire and to eventually demobilize and allow peacekeepers to be involved. The selling point being is that Burhan would not have the capacity to try to eliminate Hemeti and vice versa. So none of them would have an advantage.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's highly unlikely that they could remain in the country. So each of them would have to accept exile and to leave the country and to designate new commanders of their factions, and then, of course, to integrate them into one national army under the civilian command. That's another outcome. Otherwise, they're going to have this third force, agreements that look very good on paper, and then not being able to implement it on the ground. But they're doing the right thing. They're putting pressure on these two military generals. They're saying the option is not just Hemeti or Burhan. The option
is the people.
People that don't have blood on their hands.
Fact.
So I think that should be their demand. Ceasefire, agree to go into exile so that we can come and take administration on the ground. That's, the question is, are they going to accept ceasefire? I guess maybe if they build enough momentum so that the countries that are now funding, and I think that also implies that, are funding Burhan and funding Hemeti, now the cost of funding them becomes exorbitant. They can't do it anymore because of diplomatic and even effective sanctions against them. There's a lot of sanctions against them if they continue to fuel and finance and arm this war. The more I think about what they're doing, I commend them, and I think it has the possibility of succeeding, depending on the momentum it generates and the global support that it picks up. It's good to see that the corporate outlet, such as The Guardian, The Economist, is actually giving it some good play. With the proper tone as well.
Exactly. That's the key. And for me, it's also, hopefully it works, because if it does, it becomes a template for any other.
I agree with I'm glad we said that. It becomes a template for Cameroon. It becomes a template for many.
For even Congo.
Or even Congo. Well, the Congo is a bit different because I think Kagame actually needs a conflict in Eastern Congo. So long as he's president of Rwanda, he needs Congo's resources because, as I think we discussed an article from the Financial Times, where Congolese officials are saying Rwanda's economy benefits to the tune of $1 billion in Congo's resources. That's a very significant chunk of the budget to just lose, you see?
Of course.
So,
the whole has to be constantly plugged. Okay. We started with a writer, and I think it's important